What's happening, guys? Cooper Carter here for G66, and on this week's Fractal Friday, I am very excited to not only break down, but share with you the presets that I used a couple of weeks ago on stage with my good friends in Brit Floyd at their 12th consecutive sold-out Red Rocks show, when they were kind enough to invite me up on stage to play on one of Pink Floyd's greatest tracks, Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2. So like I said in the intro, I'm very excited about this week's Fractal Friday. A few weeks ago, I flew out to Denver to capture a very special tone tour with the guys in Brit Floyd, Damian Darlington and Ido Scordo, two of my longtime friends who I've had the privilege of working with, recreating the most accurate David Gilmour tones from every era of Pink Floyd's amazing career. They are so adept at dialing in the tones, and they are even better players. That video is coming up in a few weeks, and I promise you, everyone's going to enjoy that. And as a teaser, we are also not only releasing the presets that I used to perform with them, which were designed by Ido, but also a couple of Ido and Damian's presets for the show. The Brit Floyd show is phenomenal. I highly recommend you see it. While I was out there filming that video, it was my absolute privilege to join them on stage at Red Rocks, which is one of the most beautiful venues in the United States, on one of my favorite Pink Floyd tunes, the live version from the 1994 Pulse tour, which includes a second guitar solo after David Gilmour's absolutely iconic clean lead break, played by their touring guitarist, Tim Renwick. Many years ago at this point, I actually broke it down in my original Solo a Week series that I first started on YouTube back in the olden days in 2012 or something. But it was my privilege to play on stage with them, and I'm going to break down right now the presets that I used. There are 4. Funny thing that happened when I was playing live at Red Rocks, though, I actually accidentally stepped on the rhythm patch when I played the solo instead of the lead. It was not exactly the tone that I wanted to have when I was playing the solo, but it worked out fine. And of course, at the link in the video description, you guys have access to all 4 tones, including the correct Tim Renwick lead patch. So let's dive into the presets. Let's start with the iconic intro tone. spaced around the double verb normal here for a nice snappy clean. And of course, in true David Gilmour fashion, lots of compression for this clean sound. We start off with the pedal compressor stacked up against my favorite compressor, the Dynamic Comp. Let's turn off all this compression, and you can see how open and just inappropriate for this part the tone sounds. Really lacks that snappiness, so we'll turn on pedal compressor 1. Almost there. Let's pair these two though. And we get that really nice snap. Then the real sweetener here comes in this Studio FB compressor at the end of the chain. Really completes the recipe. So we've got the two compressors. We've got a chorus here set to the CE2, of course, for that classic sound, and a little bit of Electric Mistress flanger happening here. Very low mix at 15%, but definitely a key part of this sound. You can listen to it without it. Just doesn't sound edgy enough, doesn't really have that kind of phasey, flangy sound that we really associate with this part. And now it's absolutely there. So even at just 15%, it really makes that tone come alive. Now the depth is fairly high, and the rate is very slow. So what you're getting is that kind of slow warble that gives it kind of that spacey vibe. The icing on the cake that is this preset, though, really comes in what Ito has done with the chorusing and the cabinets. You'll notice there are two cabinet blocks. They are exactly the same. They use the same IR, except for the fact that they are hard panned. So this first cabinet is panned fully left. The second cabinet is panned fully right. And what that allows Ito to then do is put this chorus pedal here only on the left side of the stereo image to really widen out the sound just in a massive way that makes it sound absolutely perfect for the Pulse intro. Remember that the amplifier block collapses anything before it to mono, a single amplifier block. So even if there were a stereo chorus or a stereo flanger here, it would be collapsed to mono by the amplifier block. So by putting a chorus after the amplifier block and then putting it only on one side, what Ito has done is really just, again, opened up the sound. When you are trying to absolutely nail these tones in the way that the Brit Floyd guys are, the devil really is in the details. And this PEQ here, you'll see, is just doing a tiny bit of tone shaping. 3 dB down here at around 288 and just 1 dB down here around 2.5K. These are the kind of things that really just take a tone to the next level. And one of my favorite things to do is stand with Ito when Damien is on stage, and Ito will actually tweak the sounds through the rig at front of house with the Axe Edit editor, but they're actually doing their tone chasing at sound checks, constantly dialing in, constantly trying to make things better, and these tiny little adjustments here and there to really bring these tones in line with what you hear on Pulse or on an album if they're trying to nail that version, really just make the show an absolute joy to watch and to hear. The delay here obviously is a big part of the sound. 2290 with a good bit of modulation. And then again, the devil's in the details. The nice little trick here is that the stereo image is opened up a bit by delaying this right post by 4 milliseconds. So you can hear that the right is just ever so slightly behind the left. Really opens things up. And you could really use this tone for just about any song on the wall. A medium plate reverb rounds out our time-based effects here. If we turn off the delay, you can hear just that. Really nice space, very reminiscent of how the guitars were mixed on the Wall album itself. And then finally, we have a MIDI block that is just sending a PC or program change command to Ito's second Axe 3 in his rack. That unit takes care of all the sound coming out of his on-stage cabinets, which have slightly different presets for each song than what you are hearing at front of house, which is the Axe 3 entirely direct. But we will save getting into the details on that for the full tone tour with Ito. Let's move on to the next preset. Our second preset is a big, fat, fuzzy rhythm tone based around, in true David Gilmour fashion, the high power jumped or the high watt type amplifier in the Axe 3, FM9, and FM3. It is also, of course, getting a lot of its sound from the Pi Fuzz, and it sounds a bit like this. A joy of a tone to just bash out some big chords to. The core here, of course, is once again the high power amplifier and then the Pi Fuzz, classic David Gilmour combination. Again, a wonderful illustration of just how adept these guys have become at dialing in tones on the Fractal system. We have a really neat trick here. We have two amplifiers here that at first glance seem to be almost exactly the same. There's a small difference in volume. They're all set to the same tone controls. But if we go down to this preamp page, you'll see that amplifier 2's tone stack frequency, the center frequency around which all of these tone knobs are actually affecting the sound, is 556 hertz. And on the second amplifier, it's 2000 hertz. So the center frequency is completely different. So the tones are actually entirely different coming out of these two amplifiers that at first glance appear to be the same. So let's go ahead and set the bypass mode of each of these amps to mute so we can hear them individually. And we'll listen to this top amp first. Nice and fuzzy, but almost kind of plasticky on its own, right? So let's listen to the second amp. Big and beefy, definitely not plasticky, but lacking in high end. So when we put the two together, you get this massive, beautifully layered tone that really stands as an amazing contrast to the clean part that comes right after it, played in this case by Damien. So the distorted rhythm goes. And then Damien chimes in on a much cleaner part, which will bring us to Ito's clean preset. A classic David Gilmour clean. Once again, just like in the intro, of course, the delay though is off. When they play this live, Ito is playing the more distorted rhythm line that mirrors the vocal line. And then he switches over to this clean tone for the iconic descending riff that is probably the most famous part of the song. This clean preset is also used by Ito during the show, and in the case of the Red Rocks show, by me, to play the rhythm part underneath Damien's playing Gilmour's very famous first solo in the song. So while Damien is playing that, there's a rhythm part that just kind of vamps. And then finally, we come to our fourth preset, the bombastic, big Tim Renwick live solo. This is, again, based around the high-power jumped amp. In this case, though, we have foregone the Pi Fuzz, or the Big Muff Fuzz, in favor of the Tube Drive 3 knob, which is based on the Butler Tube Drive, an iconic pedal that actually featured a tube inside of the pedal itself. made very famous by David Gilmour and others. Eric Johnson, of course, comes to mind when you think of Butler tube drives. A really lovely pedal for a lead tone. A bit of PEQ here, a little bit of a dip around 3 dB at 2.5K. This is a frequency that I tend to pull down a little bit to, at least to me, reduce pick attack. And of course, a pick attack is, kind of an impulsive, transient type thing. So it's very broadband. It really kind of contains all frequencies. But I do find that if you pull down a couple dB here and there with a fairly wide Q, somewhere around 2K, 3K, 4K even, depending on the player, you can get a perceptible dip. And a little more polishing PEQ. Again, this is the kind of thing that they will dial in literally with one guy standing on stage playing and another at front of house, and spend a long time going over these kind of small details. The intentionality and the care behind this show is really just fantastic. A bit of delay as well, and then of course some reverb. The Sun plate, one of my absolute favorites, and the lead sounds a little something like this. And those are the 4 exact sounds that I used and Brit Floyd uses every night on stage. They are now available to you. For those of you on the FM3, yes, some of these presets do use a lot of blocks, and some of them use 2 amplifier blocks, which of course is not possible in the FM3. But if you drag and drop these presets into your unit, you should be able to, with a little bit of work, reconstruct these sounds. The core of these presets will translate very easily. So do visit the download link at the video description and grab these presets for yourself. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had an amazing time playing with my good friends in Brit Floyd at Red Rocks. What a special experience. Download the presets, check them out. Ito and Damien are just amazing at dialing in these tones. It has been so much fun working with them for, the better part of the last decade, maybe the decade plus at this point. They put on such an incredible show. If you guys did enjoy this video, please do make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to G66's channel. And leave me a comment in the comment section below, letting me know what you would like to see on a future Fractal Friday. Some more very special tone tours and preset releases coming up very soon, as I mentioned. And as always, if you guys want to get the absolute most out of your Fractal Audio Systems unit, whether that is the Aspect 3, the FM9, or the FM3, make sure to visit classes.coopercarter.com for my complete Fractal Audio Masterclass series. For all things Fractal Audio, keep it right here on G66, and I will see you guys very soon on Fractal Friday.